Tonight, you will dream. You will not remember it. Within minutes of waking, most of it will be gone. But the real answer for why is far stranger than, you just forgot. Your brain doesn't lose the dream by accident. In many cases, it is built to erase it on purpose. Think about what just happened. For hours, your mind ran an entire simulation. Characters. Conflict. Emotion. Sometimes terror. And then, the moment your eyes opened, that whole world dissolved like it was never there. Why would a brain spend all that energy building something just to delete it? Scientists have been asking that question for over 60 years. The answer touches sleep biology, ancient survival instincts, and the strange architecture of memory itself. And it starts with a discovery that happened almost by accident, in a lab in France. In 1953, a French researcher named Michel Jouvet was studying cats. He noticed something odd. During certain stretches of sleep, the cat's brains looked almost awake. Fast, active, chaotic electrical signals. But their bodies stayed completely still. Paralyzed. He called it paradoxical sleep. Today you know it as REM sleep, the stage where your most vivid dreams happen. Here is the strange part. During REM sleep, your brain is almost as active as it is right now, reading these words. But a part of your brainstem sends out a chemical signal that shuts down your muscles. Scientists call this REM autonomia. It is your body's built-in safety switch. Without it, you would physically act out your dreams. Some people, due to a rare disorder, actually do. So your brain is wide awake inside the dream. Your body is locked down. And when you wake up, the memory of everything that happened in between usually vanishes within about 10 minutes. Why? Part of the answer lies in a phenomenon called sleep-dependent amnesia. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker, who has spent decades studying sleep at the University of California, Berkeley, has described how the biochemistry of your brain during REM is almost designed against memory formation. Levels of a molecule called norepinephrine drop to nearly zero during this stage. Norepinephrine helps stabilize memories while you are awake. Without enough of it circulating, the dream experience gets encoded weakly, like writing in wet sand right before the tide comes in. That is one piece. But it does not explain everything. Because sometimes you do remember a dream, vividly, for days. So what determines whether a dream survives or disappears? The answer seems to depend on what happens in the seconds right after you wake up. Your brain has to actively transfer a memory from a fragile, short-term state into a more permanent one. This process is called consolidation. It usually happens through the hippocampus, the same brain structure responsible for storing new facts and experiences while you're awake. But during REM sleep, hippocampal activity behaves differently. It is busy processing the dream in real time, not filing it away for later. The moment you wake up, if nothing interrupts that fragile trace, it degrades almost instantly. Your alarm goes off. Your mind jumps to breakfast, or your commute, or your phone. And the dream is gone before it ever got a permanent address in your memory. This is why people who keep dream journals train themselves to remember more. Not because their brains are special. Because they pause, right at the edge of waking, and give the fragile memory just enough time to consolidate before anything else crowds it out. But here is where the story gets stranger. Why would evolution build a nightly experience this vivid, this emotional, this narratively complex, and then design the brain to forget it? That seems wasteful. Unless forgetting was never the point. Unless the dream's job was never to be remembered at all. This is where a Finnish cognitive scientist named Antti Rauvanchuo enters the story. In the late 1990s, he proposed something called the threat simulation theory. His idea was that dreaming evolved as a kind of nighttime rehearsal space. A virtual training ground where your ancestors' brains could practice responding to danger. Being chased. Falling. Losing someone. Confronting a predator. All without any real physical risk. Revanchuo pointed to something researchers had noticed for decades. Across cultures, across ages, negative emotional content dominates dreams far more than positive content. Fear, threat, and pursuit show up disproportionately often. If dreams were just random noise, you would expect a roughly even mix of emotional tones. Instead, the brain seems to be running the same worst-case simulation over and over. Now picture your ancestors 60,000 years ago. No streetlights. No walls. No locked doors. Every night, the darkness outside camp held real danger. A brain that could rehearse escape, rehearse threat detection, rehearse fear responses, without ever leaving the safety of sleep, had a real survival advantage. The dream was not the message. The dream was the training exercise. And once the exercise was done, there was no reason to keep the memory. You do not need to remember every rep at the gym. You just need your body to have done them. This reframes the entire question. You are not failing to remember your dreams. Your brain may be functioning exactly as it was built to. The point was never the memory. The point was the rehearsal. There is a second layer to this, one that goes beyond danger. Rosalind Cartwright, a sleep researcher who spent much of her career at Rush University studying dreams and divorce, found something remarkable in people going through major emotional upheaval. Their dreams were not just simulating threat. They were processing unresolved emotion. People who dreamed more intensely about a painful breakup, even without remembering the details later, tended to show better emotional adjustment months afterward. The dreams seemed to be doing psychological work in the background, whether or not the conscious mind ever got to see the receipt. This suggests dreaming might function like an overnight therapist. Quiet, invisible, undocumented. It processes fear. It processes grief. It rehearses your worst-case scenarios so that your waking mind does not have to encounter them for the first time in real life. And then it clears the desk before morning, ready for the next session. So why can you never quite hold on to it? Because holding on was never required. A muscle does not need to remember every contraction to get stronger. A nervous system does not need a transcript of every simulated threat to become more prepared. The forgetting is not a flaw in the design. It might be the design. This changes how you might think about a nightmare that shakes you awake at 3 a.m, heart pounding, images already fading. That was not a malfunction. That may have been your oldest inheritance doing exactly what it evolved to do, protecting you from a threat that existed only in simulation, so that some version of it never has to happen while you are awake. Tonight, you will dream again. You still will not remember it. But now you know the real reason is not that your mind is careless. It is that somewhere behind your closed eyes, a rehearsal older than language is running its course, quietly keeping you ready for a world your ancestors feared long before you were born.